Join me as we learn Chumash for Monday, second Torah reading of Parashas Naso, chapter 41, verse 29. B'nai Merari, as we continue into the families of the Levites, of what they were responsible to do in the dismantling and building of the Holy Tabernacle, and who was in charge of each one of these shifts. B'nai Merari l'mishpachaisam. Yesterday we learned about the Gershuni family. Today we're learning about the Merari family. B'nai Merari, the Merari family, mishpachaisam l'visavaisam, to their families according to their fathers' homes. Tifkedeisam, you will count them. At what age are you going to count? Ben Shleshim Shana v'mayla, from 30 years and up. V'ad ben Chamishim Shana, until 50 years. Tifkedem, you will count. Kol abol atav, whoever is eligible to work to serve. Lavi, to serve as the work of the Holy Tabernacle. V'zeis mishmeres masam, and this is going to be their charge of their burden. B'chol avidasam, to all of their service. Ba'il made in the tent of meeting. What they're going to be responsible for is Karshei HaMishkan, the beams of the Mishkan, the planks of the tabernacle, Ubrichav, its bars, Uba'amudav, and its pillars, Va'adanav, and the sockets. Verse 32, Va'amudei HaChatzer, and the pillars surrounding the courtyard as well. Va'adneim, and those sockets for those pillars. Ve'sedeisam, and its pegs, its stakes. Ve'umisreim, and the ropes. V'chol kleim, for all their items, for all their implementation. For all the work that is needed, and you must designate by name the implemented charges that are given for them for what they will be carrying and for what their burden may be. Verse 32, Rashi, what are these ropes and pegs for? Being that we find that there were ropes already and pegs that were used, that the Gershon family was carrying. So what are these ropes and pegs for? This was, as we mentioned, for the courtyard. There were ropes and pegs that were for the actual beams that helped them stand. And then there were ropes and pegs that were for the curtains of the courtyard. Because there were ropes and pegs that would help the curtains from the bottom, that they shouldn't go flying, that the wind shouldn't make them go fly. And their pegs and their ropes, if they were for the pillars all around. There were two types of ropes and pegs. There were ropes and pegs that actually helped the curtains, that they shouldn't go flying, and therefore they kept them in the place. And then there were ropes and pegs for the courtyard, that they were also there to be able to hold them in place as well. So there were one that was from the Gershon family, and one was the Merari family, the ones that had to do with the actual planks of the actual building of the tabernacle, and then there were ones that had to do with the courtyard. Verse 31. Verse 33. This is the job of the family, Merari family, for all the work that was done in the tent of meeting, and their responsibility was Biyadi Summer ben Aaron HaKohen. Summer, the son of Aaron HaKohen, was responsible for them. And now Moshe and the leaders of the congregation, the leaders of the people, went and they counted as Bnei HaKahasi, the Kahasi family, L'mishpachaisam, according to their families, L'beis Haveisam, and to their fathers' home families. Ben Shleshim Shana v'mayla, from 30 years and up, Ad ben Chamishim Shana, until 50 years, Kalabalasav, whoever was eligible to be a troop, La'avoida, to work, Ba'il Ma'id, in the tent of meeting. Vayihi Pikudeim, and it was their count, L'mishpachaisam, according to their families, Alpaim Shva Meyes, 2,700, V'chamishim and 50, 2750, 2,750 to the family of Kahas. This is the family, this is the count of the Kahasi family. Whoever was working in the tent of meeting, Asher Pakad Moshe v'Aaron, that Moshe and Aaron counted and directed, Ba'al Pi Hashem, directed by God, B'yad Moshe, to Moshe. Verse 38. And now the count of the family of Gershon, for their families according to their father's home, which is Ben Shleshim Shana v'mayla, from 30 years and up, Ben Chamishim Shana, until 50 years, Kalabalasav, whoever is eligible to be in the troop, La'avoda, to work, Ba'il Mayit, in the holy tent, in the tent of meeting. And it was the count according to their families, according to their father's house, Alpaim v'sheish meis v'shleshim, 2,630. 41. This is the count of the families of Gershon. Whoever worked in the tent of meeting, B'nai Merari, to the family of Merari, according to their families, to their father's home. verse 43, verse 43, from 30 years and up, until 50 years, whoever was eligible for a troop to serve in the tent of meeting. And what's their count according to their family? 3,200. 45. This is the count of the family of Merari. Asher pokat Moshe v'Aaron, that Moshe and Aaron counted, al pi Hashem, by the direction of God, biad Moshe, through Moshe to Moshe. Verse 46, Kol ha'pkudim asher pokat Moshe v'Aaron nesiei Yisrael, all the counts that Moshe and Aaron counted, and the leaders of the tribes that counted, Es Alavim, the Levites, l'mishpachosim, according to their families, l'veis aveisim, according to their father's home. Verse 47, ben shleishim b'shana v'mayla, from 30 years and up, ad ben chamishim b'shana, until 50 years, kol ha'bol avida avidas avida, whoever came to do a work of carrying, a service of the work of carrying, v'avidas masan, a work of perform a service, and the priest service, v'avidas masa, and a carrying service, ba'oil moyed, in the tent of meeting. What this means, avidas avida, avidas masa, Rashi explains what the two mean. Avodas Aveda, there were two different kinds of services that a Levite did in the Holy Temple. What is considered a service, which is a service? Shir, that's the singing, as well as they used to sing with instruments, which is cymbals and harps. Mitziltayim is taking two pieces of copper, which were cymbals, and they would bang them together. And the kinoides is either a harp or a string instrument. Avodas, lavedas acheres, this was an avodah. The reason why it's called avodas avodah, because it was a service which was done for another service, meaning that while they were doing the service of the sacrifices, the Levites were the ones to sing along and play with the instruments while the other service was doing. So this was a service unto a service. Then there's avodas masa, a work of carrying. Kemashmaya, literally, that they had to carry all the parts that were in the Holy Tabernacle. Verse 48, and their tally of all the Levites were 8,580. Verse 49, according to by the direction of God, Moshe counted the Jewish people, each person was appointed according to his service, and to his burden, to his labor of what he had to schlep. And their count, Asher Tziva Hashem biad Moshe, that God told them to count according to what Moshe said. According to, it was carried out through Moshe by the direction of God. Asher Tziva Hashem Moshe, Rashi says, those people that were part of the counting, Hoyu b'mitzvah, were also part of the commandment that God gave Moshe to count the people, that they were from them, that from them there were people that were from 30 to 50. They were part of this count that Moshe did. This concludes the second Torah reading of Parshas Naso.